everyone, it's time to watercolor paint. Hopefully you watched the Watercolors 101 so you know you need your watercolor palette, your brush, your little bit of water, and always have a dry paper towel next to you so that you can be changing colors. Now when you watercolor paint, you want to make sure that your watercolors are not going to sit on your project, because you don't want any of those colors leaking onto your project. That would be a bad thing. So the first thing I'm going to paint is I'm going to paint his little mohawk. And the reason I'm going to start with the mohawk is because it's a smaller area to paint, and then I can work in a couple other different spots while that area dries. Now, with our watercolor paint, remember, we don't want a whole lot of water on our brush. So make sure you swirl to get it nice and wet, and then you can go ahead and pick your colors. I think I'm going to make his mohawk red. So I am going to turn my bird a little bit so that when I paint him, the part that I am painting is closer to my watercolor palette. And the reason I do that is so that I don't accidentally drip onto my project, because that could totally ruin my project, and I don't want that. So I am swirling, swirling, swirling in my water. I'm going to take and I'm going to swirl in my red 3 times. So do you have to do red? No. You can do whatever color you want. Just make sure you swirl 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Brushes up. And we are going to slowly paint that color into that mohawk area. Now you want to be careful and just move that little bit of water around. We don't want to pick up our project anytime in the near future, because if we pick it up, what does water do when it goes vertical? It's gonna run. Is that gonna leave your painting nice and pretty, or is that gonna mess up your project? It's gonna mess your project up really bad. So I need a little bit more paint on mine, so I'm just gonna swirl twice, and then I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my bird mohawk. So getting my bird mohawk filled in. Notice I am going slow because this is a small area. You need to go slow when you're in a small area. Going to add a little bit of water, so 1 dip into my water. I'm going to swirl 3 times in my red. Did 3 times just so that I could guarantee I got enough paint on my brush, and I'm going to paint some more on my mohawk. Now that black outline is helping us. It's helping us so that it's giving us the guide as to where we should be painting. So go ahead and paint on in your mohawk. Or if you didn't, you're painting in whatever hair your bird has. Nice and slow, so that we can make sure. I'm going to get a couple more drops of paint on my brush. We're going to go nice and slow so that we can make sure we're not going outside our lines and making a big mess. Now, I notice I need to get a little bit more up here because it's starting to look a little less red. So I'm just going to put a little bit more on top. Now, notice my paintbrush is not super wet right now, so I'm just adding a little bit more paint to the top. I am not soaking my paper. We do not want our paper soaked. You can see a little bit of water sheen on mine because I've got a light above me so we can see where that water is. And now I am done with red, so I'm going to stick my brush in my water, swirl it around, and it's time to turn my bird so I can paint another area. So I am finished with my mohawk area, and I'm going to leave it sit. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let it dry, and I'm going to be very careful while I paint down here because I don't want to get up into that and have it bleed into the rest of my project. So I'm going to scoot it up, and I'm going to start working down here in this area of my bird. Now, my bird has a green outline. It's got the red mohawk going. I've got some orange on here. We've got a blue eye. I'm thinking I want to make my bird purple. Oh, it's not really purple. It's violet, isn't it? So I'm going to swirl my brush in my water for a little bit. Make sure I get it all nice and clean. Test it on my paper towel. Make sure it's nice and clean, and I'm good to go. I'm going to stop this video and I will start the body video in just a moment. So I'll see you in our bird video number 2. See you guys in a bit.